Hello, welcome to the DragonCon Urban Fantasy Track, part of DragonCon Goes Virtual 2020. We're here today to talk about The Order, and we're calling the panel Magic, Teeth, and Claws. So that we're going to have a great discussion about this very interesting and fun show. And first thing we're going to do is have each of our panelists introduce themselves. We'll begin with Rocky.
Hi, I'm Rocky Shields. I'm in Southeast Missouri. Just love science fiction. First movie I remember seeing in theaters is Star Wars. So been a lifelong genre fan, and been going to DragonCon since Carol invited me 2009. So I blame everything on her. But love the show and excited to be on this panel.
Thank you. Rachel.
I'm Rachel Graves. I'm an urban fantasy author, and I really love everything about the urban fantasy world. So I took time off my day job so I could binge watch this show when it came out. I've been going to DragonCon since 2004, and I'm really excited to dig into the tiny little details of the order.
Thank you. Marx.
Hey, I'm Marx Pyle. I'm an indie filmmaker, a podcaster, and also I'm in an urban fantasy. Well, I'm working on my MFA. I graduate in January. So it's been a nice journey. And my thesis is an urban fantasy story. So I've been doing a lot of research in urban fantasy and such, which is not that hard because I've been reading and watching urban fantasy for a long time. And I really enjoy this show.
Great. Well, congratulations on almost being done as well.
Yeah.
Hi, I'm Corinne O'Flynn. I live in Colorado. I am an urban fantasy writer, and this would have been my second DragonCon. Last year I was dragged with my friend who's been going since the beginning of time, and I have gone to lots of cons before, but never anything. I had no idea what to expect. And I was so bummed that we're not doing this in person this year. So I'm really glad to be part of my second year. So thank you for having me.
Well, we're thrilled you're here, even if it is just in this format, because it's been great to see people, face to face, even if not in front of your face, if that makes sense. So my first question is that something interesting that I thought that they did this year was when, every 2 episodes were a part 1 and a part 2, and they were kind of their own little self-contained stories. And yet you still had the overarching theme that was going on, and but it seemed as though there was one part of that mystery, or like a tangential mystery that was involved in each one of those parts. And my question for you is, did you like that format? I thought it was noticeably different from the first season because it just seemed to be an interesting way to go about it. And I'm curious what you guys thought about that, and if you had a particular, segment that was your favorite. And Rocky, we'll start with you.
I thought the storyline progression was a lot better in season 2 than season 1. I really enjoyed basically the faster pace, like with them losing their memories and everything, being tied up in a couple episodes. So especially when you're binge watching something, it's just nice to have that faster pace. And I feel like being on Netflix, they kind of knew the format a little bit better in season 2 and what worked and what didn't work from season 1.
Okay. Yeah. Did you have a favorite like story within the story?
Yeah, Hamish and Vera, their relationship is probably. I loved every scene that they were in together. And there's like tons of YouTube videos of people like just compiling all of their scenes together.
That does not surprise me. Yeah. Okay, cool. Thank you. Rachel.
So I felt cheated. I know that sounds silly, but I felt like I wanted more stories in this universe. I wanted to know more what was going on. And by giving me the 2-parters, I felt like I only got 4 stories instead of 8, or, I wanted more, but maybe I'm just a greedy fan.
Greedy. Okay, Marx, what about you?
Yeah, I think it worked pretty well for me. One complaint that some Netflix series get from critics is that they feel like they're stretched out over the whole season. feels like they're really dragging it out. And I think this approach was a nice way to kind of give us these little arcs while still continuing the overall arc and help work with those cliffhangers and such. I think it worked pretty well overall. Because I don't know if I get where you're coming from, Rachel, for sure, but I don't know if they would have really given us 5 more. It would probably been one big story, probably no Netflix.
One very long one. Now that's an interesting thing because about them stretching things out is one of the things that I've heard that people tend to complain about is the fact that sometimes things are kind of slow starting.
Yeah.
They don't really get going. But I don't think you can say that about this show.
No.
When you think about what happened in the 3rd episode of the 1st season, it was like, what? So, yes. But that's interesting. I hadn't really thought about it that way. Corinne?
I agree with Marx. I feel like season 1 took on a more traditional arc, like the whole season stretched about the big mystery. And it kind of had his father with like the mustache twirling villain by the time we got to the finish. I really enjoyed the vignette feel of the second season because it did keep with the overarching thing with Vera and the power struggle back at the Order. But my favorite episode set was the Sons of Prometheus. Like I really thought that like in just a couple of episodes, we really got huge world building, like lots of history. And what you said, Carol, about the fact that they don't waste time doing slow starts. Like they give you information as you need it and you're left there to build it and put it into the places. And I think that I really enjoy that about this series in general.
Yes. And they don't do info dumps, but they do, it seems to kind of be organic, I think, the way that they add things. And to me, one of the most significant aspects of this particular season, or one of the most significant themes, had to do with memory and personality. Because at the beginning, we see, Jack is completely different. He's not anything like what he was like, through most of season 1. And we're thinking, what? I mean, even going through what he went through over the loss of his grandfather and, all that, not to mention all the various ways that he was, poked, prodded, and, everything else. But it just struck me that the whole idea of memory and personality being so entwined that, these people if you think about the 4 wolves, they were all completely different when when the season started back up. And yet some of that they retained a little bit, but I just wanted to kind of get your thoughts on that aspect of it, and how did you see it affecting the characters, or was this just something that was a big deal to me and you didn't get quite as much out of it? Rachel, we'll start with you this time.
I have to say that first, I have to say Jack's hair was terrible. And I can't go any further without mentioning how much that hair really bothered me.
So bad.
I was, yeah.
And I really felt like that was something that it totally didn't fit his character. So when I first saw it, I was like, this doesn't make sense. And it's really eating at me. And then when they brought out why and how he was being controlled and manipulated, it really worked well for me. So I think we've definitely seen that personality being shaped. But the one that I also want to bring up is the Killith versus Lilith kind of argument, right? That was amazing to me that, we shift a few little things in her memory and she is a completely different person. And I think that was fun for the writers. And as a watcher, it was really fun for me. There was a lot of surprises for me this season. And I really think those drastic personality shifts were like, I had rewatched the first season before the second season came out. I'm that girl. And it was so jarring, and yet it worked out so well. And I think you've nailed it. It's because without our memories, without our experiences, we're totally different people.
Okay. Marx.
Yeah, I agree. I also hated Jack's hair.
Exactly. I think we probably all are on that.
Yeah. It's funny, is even after he colored it, I was still like, no, it still doesn't look right for some reason.
That's bottle color if I ever saw it.
Yeah, I think it was really interesting. By changing our memories, we got to see more about what made them them and their personalities too, other aspects of their personalities. I wouldn't want it to have lasted long, but like we said, they kept things moving. And so, so I liked how that worked. I think that also gave, Gabrielle a good entry point into the group a little bit, but she grew a lot as a character this season. And also with what you said about personalities, I mean, you get that pretty heavy with the Sons of Prometheus and such, and trying to become this hive mind also. So, so yeah, I agree with that. And I love, like how you said, when you said earlier about expanding out the world, they did a great job with that by showing Sons of Prometheus and Praxis and such. And that was pretty cool, and giving us, another werewolf. So
yeah, you always need another one of those, especially on this show, right? Cool.
I agree. I think the thing that I liked the most about the memory play was, it was so frustrating to me that every time something was inconvenient, they just blew some magic pixie dust and then everyone disappeared. But two things that stood out to me were that, first of all, the people who knew what was going on didn't really like the people that they were managing now that they didn't have the memories. Like the relationships were shallow, and it showed in the way that there was nothing there for them. But also the people who were being memory wiped continuously pushed against something not being right. And I thought that they really did that well. Like, they could have banged us against the head with it, and they didn't, the writers. So I really enjoyed, like, every time it happened, I was like, oh, is this going to be the moment where they realize what's going on? So I thought that I really liked the way they did that. But yeah, there's the relationships didn't exist while they were being managed. And I think that even the people who were managing them were like, okay, this is getting old.
Right. Something's got to give. I guess, wasn't there the implication that it was because of their werewolf natures that the stuff just didn't have the spells, did not have quite the same lasting impact as they would have for someone else. That's why they had to keep dosing them. But you're right. Every time it seemed as though they didn't like something, or they thought, oh, they're starting to remember, then poof. Rocky, what about you?
I really liked the different aspects with the memory wipe. The big one, though, I thought Randall was probably the least changed out of the four of them. He seemed like his fun, loving self, no matter what. But in Gabrielle's perspective on the hair, it just seems like that was something from her perspective that she wanted. And it's funny, the others kind of tried to be as, what's the word, less invasive, while Gabrielle's personality was like,
and you like cheerleading, and this is your hairdo.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
The cheerleading just felt so out of left field for me. We had nothing about cheerleading in the first season, and now suddenly it's a thing. And respect to cheerleaders, they're athletes, but where did that come from?
Yeah.
Well, that was funny too. The scene where, I think it was in the first episode, where he goes to the tryouts, and seeing him trying to be into it, and when he obviously isn't, and yet if you look at him or you talk to him, he's like, oh yeah, I love it. And you're like, no, you don't, dude. No, you don't. Well, and I actually have a quote here from Randall, something he said to Lilith in the second episode. He said, the order took our memories to change us. It kind of feels like they succeeded. And, when they started to remember these other things that they were supposed to forget. And I do, I liked that insight, that he was aware of it, even as they were still kind of under the influence of what was going on. Now, is in talking about the characters, who was your favorite character out of the more important main characters on the show? Marx, we'll start with you, and why? Why was that someone that just kind of resonated with you?
That's tough. There's such a good group of people. So I think Randall grew on me a little bit this season. I don't know. He's funny because he's always so like, his answer is to kill everything. It's kind of funny. You can contrast everybody else. And then, I don't know. I think it's tough because I like, for different reasons. Gabrielle really grew on me just because of her. She's like a Cordelia dynamic in the team.
Right. Exactly. That's a good point.
And so I like that. And I kind of felt like they were going that direction of her becoming a werewolf at some point. They threw us exactly how that would happen for sure with Midnight. But I do like, I mean, she by far grew so much more than the other ones. But they all did, just add on what you said earlier, they all did change a lot, right? They're all suddenly, or most of them, became like, the Order's not so bad now, you know?
Right, sure, yeah.
The Knights used to be the Order, we'll work with them now, you know? And it was very interesting. She was not my, it's really tough because I really liked Alyssa a lot last season, but then she took this 180 and flipped into more of an antagonist role. And it was rough seeing that dynamic tear apart, like her and Jack's relationship. So
it was hard.
Yeah,
it was hard to watch.
Though I thought story-wise, it was very well done and where it needed to go, and she did a really good job with the acting, with what they gave her and everything.
I agree.
Yeah.
Corinne, what about you? Who was your favorite?
So the character that I'd most like to hang out with, just to hang out with, would be Hamish. Like, he sounds like just total fun and, you know, historian where the bar is concerned, which is interesting to me. But as far as character goes, I think Vera, we would learn so much about her, and she comes off as such a wall and such a stone, and she's really heartbroken and damaged in such deep ways. That I like her. She's my favorite character. I'm really curious to see what they're going to do with her, but Hamish would be the guy that I want to hang out with.
Okay, well, there you go. You might get both of them 2 for 1 at this point. Rocky.
Hamish is my favorite, just because he's the fun, life of the group. He really feels like he brings the group together, even, in the worst of times, which you always need that type of character with a show. And then probably second would be Vera, her scenes with her rival Elizabeth, just the looks she'll give Elizabeth, sideways glances, are just perfect. But I've always been a fan of that actress since Ginger Snaps. So, but she can just give a look to a character and emote so much just from her glances without ever saying a line.
Yeah, that's a good point. And she did, and even then, she still gets most of the best lines.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Between she and Randall, that's who I end up writing down the stuff the most. Rachel, what about you?
You guys took mine. Vera, for sure. This idea of a beauty queen with a child, and yet we see her as such a stone cold bitch, and she was just amazing in all of her roles. But Hamish, for sure. And I want to pull out that Hamish is more mature than the other groups, the other wolves. And I really saw that in this season in a way I didn't the last season. He's a graduate student. He's not 19 and figuring out his way. And I feel like this season he started to make some of those hard grown-up decisions. This isn't what I want to do, but it's what needs to happen. And to me, that evolution was really impressive in the character. And I would watch a show of him and Vera just, hanging out, like you said. I would love to see what he brings to the table outside of making drinks. I think they have a lot more they could explore.
And the romance between him and Vera was really believable. As campy as the show is, the storylines have that edge of being almost Scooby-Doo silly, but there's a gravitas that comes with the way that all of these actors are doing it. It's just enough of both that it's really compelling. But yeah, their romance was really powerful too.
Really nice. Yeah.
And you've heard their, I guess it's their ship name, Vermish.
Oh no!
That is horrible.
Wow.
And the only way that I was even aware of this was, actually, it's mentioned once in the show. But prior to, I think it's Randall who says it. And and I wouldn't even have caught it because he says it as kind of an aside, except that someone, when I had mentioned about the fact that we were going to do a panel on the Order, there was one of the respondents, one of the commenters who said something about, oh, that's great, I love Vermish. And I was like, oh, that's hilarious. But yeah, and then Randall actually, it was, as I said, it was a comment that unless I don't know that I would have noticed it, or I wouldn't have known what he meant probably if I hadn't seen that. But yeah, so that's kind of funny. Now, who would you say, out of all of the characters, do you feel actually changed the most, whether for good or ill? Who, either we see a complete about face, in one direction or the other. And Corinne, we'll start with you this time.
Oh goodness, a lot of characters did lots of changes. But while you were asking it, Gabrielle popped into my head because she went from being like an absolute, mole, and I'm going to destroy you from the inside, and is now an ally, and in such a believable way for me. Like, I think that she really connected with them, and I think that now doesn't she have one of the pelts?
Midnight.
Yes.
Midnight, right. And so, like, I really enjoyed the way that her character is gonna, I think, as they continue the show, be really interesting to see.
Yeah, well, she started out, as you were saying, I mean, I kept thinking, are they going to kill this woman off? I mean,
no, yeah, I don't like her.
Not this season, but last season. And then, she was, because you could see she was taking so much, she appeared to be taking so much glee in torturing people with that arm thing, or that the hand that would make you tell the truth or whatever. She appeared to really get into it, and I'm thinking, yeah, we don't need her anymore. I think one of the reasons that she maybe gravitated towards, especially towards the werewolves, was the fact that despite the way she tried to act, the kind of airs that she carried herself with and everything, that she felt as though she was an outsider too. And, so she can kind of identify with them on some level. That's kind of a feeling I got. But Rocky, what about you?
Probably Alyssa, just because she went from being like so pro order to, basically wanting to see everything torn down and, give magic to everybody. And because season 1, she was about as staunch a supporter as can be. But like I said, I really liked the arc that they did with her, and it felt real to where she got to the point to the end of the season and everything. But definitely her character from season 1 to season 2 is pretty drastically changed, and the way Jack kind of treats her, or after he gets his memory back, I think kind of helps push her to that direction a little bit too. So, but overall, like I said, I thought the writing for her was really strong this season, and I thought the actress, I can't remember the actress's name, but I thought she did an excellent job portraying that change throughout the whole season 2.
Yeah, because it was gradual.
Yeah.
It wasn't something that, like she woke up one day and she was different, like with blonde hair. I mean, her hair was blonde, but you know what I mean. So, okay. Thank you. Rachel.
I think I'm going to bring up Lilith in this one because we don't see her for a lot of the seasons, but when we do, she's grappling with some really big issues, and she's growing in a way that we didn't see. Early on, it was very much she was just going to kill people and hurt people, and that was fun for her. And in this season, we really see her question who she is and what she feels. And I felt like it was handled beautifully. And I really liked her relationship and this idea of maybe this is based on lies, but I'm still feeling what I feel and I need to accept that. I just felt that was writing I don't usually see in television shows. I loved the other characters, and I'm happy to talk a long time about Vera, becoming more emotional, opening up more, and Hamish flipping to the side of the order. The way Alyssa handled killing someone was so amazing.
So well done.
Yeah, so well done. The agony she went through, so it felt so real to me. But I think when it comes down to it, I really love Lilith, that decision, that memory of someone else, but still feeling what you feel. I love that. I love the way they did that.
Yeah.
Okay. And Marx.
I think everyone was taken. Well,
you can elaborate on one of the ones that's already been mentioned if you like.
No, I think there are two things. I think it's interesting how Alyssa and Jack's dynamics, like they switch allegiances and their world viewpoints kind of switched spots. But I think the biggest change this season, and probably will continue on past this season, is Gabrielle, because she still has to contend with Midnight taking control of her whenever he wants, or at once, and she has to deal with, you know, what she did to Alyssa too. So even if Alyssa happens to be returned from the dead, who knows in the show, right? She still has to deal with, you know, losing control and ripping her throat out. So.
And that final scene where she she's in the graveyard and she has changed back and it's obvious that it's just her and Midnight's nowhere around. I guess he had his fun, so, you know, but that was, I thought they did that really well too. That kind of reaction seemed as though it would be realistic. And yeah, she's an interesting character, no matter how you look at it. She's, even though, as I was saying before, I didn't care for her at all, last season. And then, she seemed to get progressively worse over the first season. But then by this season, you start to see more nuance. And that's really what you want anyway. I mean, even in a villain, that's what you want. And I wouldn't, deem her a villain necessarily, but she was certainly no friend to, well, pretty much anybody at that point.
The writers did a really good job with that, making people that we started off like really hating, they become sympathetic in so many different ways. And I think that it's just, they really did a really good job with all of that. There's a lot of opportunities to pick any character and say, well, they used to be this and now they're this, and it's completely believable. And like you said, Carol, it's gradually done, so we can understand how they got there. But yeah, it's really dynamic the way that they're changing everybody.
Yeah,
I'm really
I was gonna say Lilith was probably the least favorite of my four in season 1, and they did such a wonderful job in season 2 with her story arc that it's like, oh, they're pretty much all even for me, all four of the knights, in terms of how much I care about their characters. So well done to the writers on progressing them through season 2.
And I was just going to say, one of the things I love about this show is how we're in a college setting. We're in a setting where people discover and they explore and they change who they are and they change what matters to them. And we're actually seeing that in the characters. And I thought that was so nice and true to life. And I was really impressed with the show that it didn't just say we're using a college as a backdrop, but actually the characters are evolving the way I would expect someone in that situation to evolve.
Yep, I agree.
Were there moments or scenes that really shocked you? You came just completely shocked you when they happened, when you just said, "Oh my God, I can't believe that." that happened that way. And Rachel, we'll start with you.
Oh, good. So for me, it was a very, very obscure scene. And if everybody else missed it, I totally get that. But it was the murder in the garage. I think it was Elizabeth. But what shocked me about the scene was that she had Jack's little half-brother.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And the whole idea that the order is taking care of him and taking him to his lessons, and he's still asking for his dad, just really... It was a blink and you missed it, but it really shocked me to see the order on a larger family scale and see that dynamic working out, because schlepping some kid you don't know to and from his lessons isn't fun. It isn't something I expect a woman in power to be doing. This character's clearly been a woman in power, but she's still taking care of this kid. And I just thought it spoke to the order on a level we didn't see anyplace else. And it was such a small thing, but it really developed the idea for me.
So, and because of that, somebody made the comment earlier about Randall that, that he was just fun-loving, but that was pretty extreme. That was something I had trouble imagining him doing. And I just did. And that was the one thing in terms of character development that I just had a difficult time accepting. But anyway, I digress. Marx.
Yeah, it's tough because there's so many. They're really good about those shocking moments and twists. Right. I mean, the at the end, the ones with Alyssa I mentioned in Midnight, and then the reveal about Lilith when she comes back. Those are going to be cool for later. Okay. Trying to get a little bit further back in this season, I think, or earlier in the season, I think, like whenever they wrote out Jack and he was like part tree and stuff, that was pretty wild.
Oh my gosh, yeah.
So so that was pretty wild, and all, and they had taps in all the trees and stuff. It's like,
It was just so crazy.
It was pretty creepy. I mean, those people were creepy no matter how you look at it. I mean, just the concept. Corinne, what about you?
So I think that my main, like, oh my God, is that happening moment was when that person was like stuck half in, half out of the wall. And that kind of speaks to like a lot of people just like up and die and like, okay, moving on, like there's just there's just no fallout from that stuff. But I think that one of the biggest, for me, I was going to say the tree, the idea that they're drinking the essence and the hive mind, like that stuff really blew me away. Like I found that to be like unique. I haven't seen anything like that in any other kinds of story before. So I really enjoyed that in the dark kind of way.
So if some creepy trees show up in some of your books in the future, we'll know why, right? Couldn't get it out of your mind. Rocky, what about you?
The character in the wall stood out. I thought the special effects were much improved in season 2, but one of my favorites was when they go to get their, I guess, skins back. Is that what they refer? Or werewolves?
Their hides.
Hides. I loved. We can just walk in. Jack's like, we can just walk in, and then of course it's never as easy as you think the characters think it's going to be. But just loved the whole heist aspect of that episode, and I thought they had a lot of fun with it. But and then, of course, the demon kind of crossing them and them not getting their stuff back was a nice continuation of that story. So to me, that the guy on the wall, just the way they upped the special effects this season, and then that heist episode was 2 of my favorites from season 2.
So no one's going to mention the puppies? And Randall naming one of the puppies.
Oh yeah, the puppies. Like, how bizarre was that?
They were so cute, and it was so Randall, and it was just a great little, like, suddenly we have puppies, and they're adorable, and he's named them.
Right, yeah. He's like, well, wait.
Right, puppies used to be people.
Yeah, some of the stuff, like, it's like, oh. But one of the things that I did not like, well, I don't know if you're going to go there, Carol, so if you're going to go there, just cut me off. But, like, when we had the Ian Ziering and what's his face?
Jason Priestley. Yeah.
Jason Priestley.
Yeah.
This show was perfect until that took me right out of the show. It took me right out of the world, and it was just a little bit over the top for me.
Well, and the funny thing about that is I thought it was targeted to a specific type of fan, because I was watching with people who were like, who is that guy? And I was like, I think he used to be on a show.
Oh, no.
See if I can. I sound horrible saying that, but for a lot of the fans, 90210 is a very dated period, right?
Right.
And Sharknado, I felt like that was an obscure reference.
Yeah, the pop culture episode. Yeah, I did not like that vignette story. That, like, I was like, you could have just done without that. I don't know who directed that one, but
you could probably tell how old the writers are, though.
Yeah.
Then
it's true.
Well,
We're gonna have original Power Rangers make an appearance too.
I think it maybe would have been more effective if they just talked about them, because every once in a while you'll see one of these shows where they make reference to, oh well, so and so, some historical figure. Oh well, they were a witch, not a demon. But I mean, the person doesn't actually show up, but I mean, they'll make this reference. And so it may have been more effective. What you're saying is it pushed you out of the show or out of the scene when they did that. I thought how it ended was funny, though. That
Yes, it was really well done. But it's only like, I think that's also like Rachel said, that's it's kind of because we are of a certain age and we knew it back when it was on TV, like, and their rival, like who they are as people, like that was like the perfect just dessert for Ian Ziering's character to end up looking like him. But yeah, like there were a lot of that pair of stories had so many pop culture references just in passing and in like right in your face. Too much for me.
Well, and I'd like to talk a little bit about praxis and their whole idea about, you know, that you could do magic without sacrifice, meaning you didn't have to, you know, bloody yourself or sacrifice another animal or something, which is kind of counter to the whole idea that you always see when anything to do with magic, where it says, well, there's always a price. There's always a cost, whether or not it's an actual sacrifice or not. And, you know, and their whole idea that, well, magic should be available to everyone and not just to the chosen few, or not just to, you know, this select group of people who is selected based upon whatever. And because at one point, Jack even says that he didn't have a problem with what their goal was. It was how they were going to get there that he had an issue with. And I think that that's probably the attitude that a lot of people would have had. But I'm kind of curious what your thoughts are on that whole thing. And just, you know, everybody here either reads a lot of urban fantasy or reads and writes it. And so, you know, but it seems to me as though that's something worth exploring, how you guys feel about that aspect of it. And Marx, we'll start with you this time.
Yeah, I thought it was interesting approach that they took. I guess like in Magicians, you get that lip of the hedge witches not, you know, getting kicked out or whatever, and their memories removed. Like one of the lead characters had that whole story arc in Magicians. But I did like that they approached that. I really liked the side effect. Like I love that trumpet type sound and the weird effects that were happening. That was really epic feeling, and I hadn't really ever seen it done that way. Yeah, I mean the best bad guys are ones where you kind of see where they're coming from. You understand their motivations. If they were just doing it differently, you would maybe side with them. And I do think they handled that well. Salvador was a better spokesperson though than Professor Fowley or whatever.
Yeah. Well, it's funny, in my notebook, the first was either the first or second time that he appeared, I wrote a note to myself, there's something off with this. And little did we know, but yeah. But no, you're right. She was much more effective. We know why now, but at the time you didn't really, you know, that took me by surprise to find out that was all flipped. I thought that was interesting.
That's cool.
Yeah.
Corinne, what about you?
So as far as the concept of magic for everyone, like, yeah, okay, that's fine. But like magic without a cost, like as somebody who writes urban fantasy, like if you have somebody with absolute power or power that doesn't cost, like there's nothing at stake. And I think that there's no, it kind of makes them like a cardboard magic user because there's nothing to prevent them from doing anything. And I think that something that we saw in the Praxis characters was that, you know, absolute power is corrupt. Like they have so much power and they're not having to pay any kind of price. And they're also haven't been schooled in like the theology of it or the philosophy behind it so that they have any kind of restraint. And so I think that it's, you know, their idea that, yeah, magic for everyone, they're proving why everyone shouldn't have it. So I thought it was interesting in that way. But as a writer, it's difficult from a character development point of view to make magic have no cost, because then there's no cost.
Yeah, because if there weren't, probably everybody would do it. Yeah. Rock, what about you?
I thought it was an interesting choice as a villainous organization for season 2, because season 1, you knew exactly who the villain was. So it was kind of cool because they slowly build up to, no, they're just, you know, they really are the bad guys throughout the season. And I thought the actress that played Salvador, she did a really good job from, you kind of on their side to her portrayal of that character to be where you're like, no, they definitely are on the wrong. Like Miss Flynn said, no price for their magic. And they were kind of shown that there was a price with kind of like, hey, you might cause the end of the world, and we're still gonna keep doing what we're doing, even if it ends the world. Kind of was the turning point for me, where they're like, no redeeming.
Yeah. Yeah, they didn't seem too concerned, did they? So
No, not at all.
It was raining puppies. That's why.
yeah, that's right. If you can just get more puppies, then what the heck. Except if they were one of the ones turned into a puppy, they might not appreciate that. But
do we know who became the puppy? The puppies?
I don't think they ever said.
They were not important.
They were the side characters. And now they're just side puppies. Like, are we going to see them in the future?
We better. I'm going to need to see the puppies.
Well, maybe they'll be back, and maybe we'll find out Randall actually kept one. Who knows?
They're going to be guarding. They're going to be guarding the pelts, the hides.
Which is funny in like a lot of werewolf fiction and movies. Like, animals aren't the biggest fans of werewolves, so.
Oh yeah.
Well, that's true. That's true. Now, Rachel, what about you?
So I think one of the things I love about this show is the way they subvert tropes. And so we do have a character that appears to be submissive and less powerful, and suddenly it's Salvador. And that was great for me. But I feel like the concept of magic without a price is really irresponsible. I think it was without a price they have to pay at that time. And I felt like their view was really myopic. So yeah, they just really struck me as the kids who read Enron and kind of ran with it from there. I did not like I like the magic for everyone concept, but the concept where we're just not going to worry about ending the world was problematic for me. And in a lot of ways, I didn't think Praxis was a really good villain just because it didn't feel like a well-organized machine. It felt like an irresponsible bunch of kids dreaming about a utopia that haven't really worked on that problem. And I don't want to be ageist when I say kids, because clearly it was all ages in this group, but it just seems so short-sighted to me. And, magic I don't think you can have magic without a price. I don't think you have anything of value without a price. And it was just that they weren't going to have to pay for it, so they didn't care.
And, another side of that is, for me, like, it kind of reinforced the value of the order, because they're cultivating these people by giving them the history and training them in the power. And, look what happens when it's available with no background. Like, there's no grounding factor at all in anything that they're doing. All they want is power for power's sake, without any kind of respect for any of it. So I think it kind of reinforces, like, the order's so bad, but maybe not. They serve a purpose.
Right.
Yeah. And that was a nice flip from season 1 to season 2, where you get more in season 2. You're more on the side of the order than you were in season 1.
Well, it's a good demonstration, though, how what we saw in season 1 was how that kind of power could be subverted. In the case of Edward, that he was not exactly the poster child for the order. After he was gone, it's kind of like we can pretend he was never here. That kind of thing. So it does. But you're right. In the second season, we get to see more of the background. Hamish talks about that a lot. And Rachel, you had made the comment about that there is always a cost at some point, and it's one of the final episodes, and I think it was in the last episode, where Vera actually tells Alyssa, she said, oh, there's always a cost. You can pay it now or you can pay it later, and later is always worse. And, well, I guess Alyssa didn't even get that far.
Hey, it was technically later.
Yeah, it was.
It was technically
5 minutes.
It may have only been 5 or 10 minutes, but it was later. Now, I'm also curious, you know, to me, the show felt very fresh, and I'm curious about your feelings about what their take on magic and about werewolves was. You know, how did that work for you? And to me, I thought it was pretty unique, really. And I'm just curious what you guys thought. And Corinne, I think it's your time to go first.
I agree. I feel like so much of what they did in both of the seasons, like having a secret order at a college isn't unique or fresh, but the way that they did, like with the vademecum and like where the power comes from and what enhances the power and all that is a lot of the aspects of how they brought that to us, I felt was fresh. But I really like the way that they are still developing the relationship between the knights and the order, because we know, but we don't know why they're no longer, protectors of why are the knights that were once the protectors of the order now the arch enemies of the order, but now maybe not. And I really enjoyed the way that they developed that, and the fact of the hide being in the trunk, and the fact, like, the magic of that. And I love that we don't have Lilith's hide back yet, like, so that means something. So yeah, I my favorite world building aspect that's the most fresh is the history of and where it's going to go with the knights versus the order.
Okay. Yeah, when you're talking about the hides, for them to be an actual physical manifestation of something, like when they had to pull one out of Jack.
Yes.
Yeah. That was very graphic, but it was graphic in such a way that it was visceral, I guess you could say, maybe rather than graphic. And for what it means to what they live with inside of them all the time.
Well, and the fact that the hides actually have personality, and like that they take them on, and when they were warring inside of Jack, like that, the whole aspect of it was just really, again, it's just so richly developed, I guess, because without hitting us over the head with it, there's just so much there that we don't even know yet, but you know that it's hopefully coming. There's just a big history. Like they could write books and books about the history of just the wolves, and you'd be there for it, because like when you read like on the wikis and stuff, and it tells you like who the original handler was, or the owner of the hide, and now who's the current owner of the hide, and like what happened. It's really, it's just really well done. So that is the fresh thing for me.
Okay, Rocky, what about you?
Yeah, the hide aspect, and they've actually mentioned two other hides, Alpha and a seventh one, and haven't even gone to that story aspect yet. But I definitely thought the way they did the werewolves was very unique and not done. And I like the fact that the hides choose who they go with as well, and that they can like kind of reject somebody that they don't like. I thought it's an interesting aspect. And my one question though is like Jack, when he sees the vision of the character from season 1, is that actually the hide speaking to him, and he's just like interpreting it as somebody he knows? I thought it was an interesting way to do that. So, and then of course Gabrielle sees a vision when she's talking to Midnight.
They were people they killed.
Yeah.
In Jack's case, it was Clark. The Professor Clark was the person he killed as a werewolf that he didn't even know that he'd done, but he was protecting someone. And and then when Gabrielle sees Kyle, she was the one who set him up to die. So there is some significance there, but I don't know what that. They were supposed to be in the collective unconscious, but I don't know exactly why they had those particular characters. Other than that reason would be the only thing I could think of.
I just thought it was a cool concept, and they executed it well both times. They did it with Gabrielle and Jack.
Oh, I agree. Rachel.
I love that this is such a diverse world, and I love that we see women becoming werewolves and that being just as ferocious, just as evil. I love all the different ethnicities and the fact that it's not heteronormative. But the thing that really strikes me about the werewolves particularly is that they're good guys, and I think that's rare. I'm used to seeing werewolves as either a tortured kind of, they'll be good eventually, but they've done terrible things, or sort of this mixed bag. But these guys are knights with everything that implies, all of those morals, all of those ethics. They're saving people. And I really like that juxtaposition of something that's monstrous, but it is still a force for good in this world. And I thought that was the really fresh take, is that these aren't, you know, biker werewolves. These aren't werewolves that, you know, mate for life, but they kidnapped you. You can tell I read like
the alpha bad boy biker.
Yeah, exactly. He's a trope. And it's just so nice to be like, yeah, the alpha grad student bartender. Like that I think is really fresh. And I liked the idea of them having a history as knights and history of morality and doing the right thing and really chewing over those decisions. They might kill someone lightly, but they're going to think about, you know, what's the right thing to do before they go off and act that way, I guess.
Well, that kind of goes back to the fact that the Hyde chooses you, right? Yeah. Like they are noble monsters, I guess.
And that's not something we've seen with werewolves.
No.
You know, our werewolves aren't usually noble, and I like that.
Yeah, they have a purpose. In the show, they have a purpose, and yeah, you don't always see that other than, you know, as you were saying, some of the different characteristics you see, like the people who got turned because they didn't want to be, and they're having to learn to deal with it. I mean, there are all kinds of depictions, but that was, I think it is a different one. Marx.
Yeah, you know, the show could have been like a normal or a clone of like Magicians or Legacies or whatever, but it found a unique voice, and the order itself is a little bit, could be a little bit, the magic order could be a little bit different, but what really sold it to me was the werewolves, for sure, like you guys, the knights, the history, unique history, and that they are heroic. I was trying to think of what other stories were kind of like that. I think the werewolf role-playing game from World of Darkness had a sort of heroic edge with them, like the protecting Earth, protecting Gaia, and then like Teen Wolf from MTV. But like usually they're always monsters, or usually they're like full moon races that kill everybody, you know, and you gotta lock me up. So it was neat seeing a new twist. And even though in like folklore mythology, there are aspects of using hides to become like a beast version, like berserkers and stuff like that, shamans, and but you don't see it very much in pop culture. And I like that they took that angle with it, with the hides and magic. That's really their most original angle. And now with season 2, broadening the magical societies, I think has been a really good move too. And I hope there's more of them out there, other kinds, and I hope that we get to see them. So it'll be fun.
That's a great segue into my next question, which is, if we do get a season 3, which has not been announced yet, even if it's been decided, it hasn't been announced. But what do you see happening? Where do you think the show is going to go? And Rocky, we'll go with you.
To be frank, I'm not sure. I'm sure they'll deal with Elisa's death or resurrection. If they go with the format like this year, that'll be resolved within first or second episode. But definitely, maybe there's, you know, other magical orders out there. Maybe have the villains be a different order from a different college, or something of that nature for the bad guys in season 3.
Okay. Rachel.
If the writers could do it without devolving into a monster of a week, I would love to see them bring in a disordered magical system. All of the magical systems we've seen so far have been a collective base. And you know, like to the point where we had a literal collective where everybody was linked together. I'd love to see some sort of like disordered fae. All these people have power and they're not following any rules and they're unpredictable. And how does the order take care of that? How does power couple Vera and Amish take over that sort of disorganized chaos of magic?
Okay. Marx.
If I had to guess, and they're good at being unpredictable, so who knows?
Right, that's for sure.
Yeah, Alyssa, it'll probably resurrect her somehow. It'll break something, and that'll help propel the next arc probably. maybe chaos magic or something like that, or maybe it lets something into our world or something. I don't know. I want to know what's making those trumpet sounds. That'd be cool.
We have a whole season of necromancy, right?
Yeah.
See, and now two of you at least have mentioned, bringing back Alyssa, having her somehow resurrected. Who do you think would have done it? Who do you think would do it? It was both Rocky and Marx that said that. Who do you think would bring her back?
I mean, Jack would probably make a deal with some entity or team.
No. I think it's going to be Hamish to save Vera.
Oh yeah. There's that. Yeah, Vera can't get her magic back really unless Alyssa.
Right. And I think that will totally destroy her. And Hamish is just that guy who's going to get her powers back no matter what.
That's a good one.
Yeah, and although I did wonder if by Alyssa dying, if Vera would get her magic back, but that didn't get. We didn't. I mean, that was not addressed because it happened pretty quickly. So I mean, it seemed as though the end was pretty fast after that happened. Corinne.
I think I like the idea of Hamish doing something for Vera. Like I can see that happening. I think that the return of Lilith and the way they do it will have either opened up a hell mouth or, they're going to have broken something or broken some ancient treaty, and it's going to bring rise to some, because Lilith's part demon.
Yeah.
Remember. So I think that there's going to be something else from that part of the magic realms that'll come in and destroy the world, and everything's going to be in stake. But I think that I didn't think Alyssa would be coming back. I thought we were going to see, but now I think we have to see her back. But I was thinking that maybe we would see a lot of like a romance, kind of like Jack, I can't think of the characters' names in Pirates of the Caribbean, like only on the one day. So maybe like Jack sees her only like the subconscious, and he has a romance with her there. But no, we have to have her back in order to save Vera. So yeah, I think Hamish will bring her back. And break the world in the process.
I found it funny, ironic that I don't know if you guys watch Warrior Nun or not, but there's a Lilith character in that who also got sucked into hell and came back.
Yeah. We don't know what's going on with her either, except we do know there'll be another season. So and that show is also covered by this track. So
just don't call your kids Lilith, okay?
Yeah, it's just a bad name, bad choice.
Yeah, and that was very interesting. Her, when and how about that idea of there being this portal in the trunk? Wasn't that great? I thought that was amazing. There are little things that they do on the show, like they had the scene where it was in one of the last episodes where there were students at the university who were doing magic in the classroom, as opposed to everything used to be only in the temple, But I mean, these guys, it was just like a lab. It was magic lab. And I thought that was kind of amusing. But now I have a question for you guys to see if anybody knows the answer to this. This will be our last one. But can anybody explain to me, did I miss something as to where the temple changed? It used to be underneath this old abandoned building. It was, inside, or was underneath that in season 1. But in season 2, it's under the library.
Yeah, I thought I missed something too. I don't know.
Oh, okay.
Better budget in season 2.
Well, and to me, that was different entrances, right? There's one entrance you go in when you don't know anything, and one entrance when you move up. But I could be overthinking it.
Oh, maybe it is that simple.
Because we didn't see much of the temple bar in season 1 either.
No. Well, we needed that bar because Hamish is such a big character in the order at that point.
Yes, he's going to be there more often, so you obviously have to have the bar. So yeah. But yes, if any of our viewers have a theory as to why the temple actually changed locations, hopefully they will leave it in the comments too. So.
Probably a boring reason, like they got kicked off the set or it got demolished or something.
Right. So because I kept thinking about that, and one of my notes to myself in my notebook even said things change with no explanation. And that's just been bugging me like the whole season. So Anyway, but we'll see. Maybe there will be some sort of explanation. Maybe I should, actually write to the showrunner and say, hey, what is this? But in any case, thank you very much for being here. This has been a fun discussion. I hope that you enjoyed it. I hope our viewers enjoyed it. I want to thank all of you for being here. And I would, if we were in person and we had an audience that was right here with us, I would be asking them to clap for you right now. So I will do it myself. But I do want to thank all of you for taking time out of your regular lives to come here and do this. It was great. Thanks to all of our viewers.
Thanks for having us. It was fun to geek out.
Thank you for having us, Carol.
You're quite welcome. It was great to see everybody, and next year in person. That's what we're hoping for. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Bye.
Thanks. Bye.
Bye.